morning and or late afternoon. Today is Tuesday, the 8th of October, 2019. I'm Brach Jennings.
And I'm Peter Clark.
And this is Stumbling Block. And Peter,
yes,
today I got to do the introduction, unlike the last one where I couldn't keep a straight face long enough to do the darn thing.
Yes, well, it's good.
So, we're back to normal, friends.
Whatever approximates normal around here.
Yeah, for us, that's a long shot.
Right.
I did come to the conclusion that you have to be a special kind of weird to engage in theological dialogue and to study theology. I think we've talked about that on this before.
We have.
It's worth repeating again, though, because it never gets old.
No.
So, friends, we were gone for a week, and we're sorry about that. But we had a very special reason for not recording last week. And Peter, why don't you tell us about that reason?
Well, our producer Ben Dittman got married, so congratulations, Ben. It was a beautiful wedding. It was Harry Potter themed. It was very fun.
Well, and Ben, I am sorry that I couldn't be there in person. I was thinking about you on the day of your wedding. Peter can attest to this because I was texting him, wasn't I, Peter?
Yep.
And so, congratulations to Ben, our loyal and faithful Patreon producer.
Yes.
And now we are back in the grind of things.
It's true.
I mean, whatever the grind of things really means. Also, my feet are killing me. I need to take my shoes off.
Okay, go for it.
One of the things you learn about, one of the things I've learned, rather, about the places that I've studied over the last decade is I tend to have this pattern now of going to cities, no matter what country they're in, that require a lot of walking. And I just walk all over the place. And Tübingen has a similarity to Berkeley. Well, it has a couple of similarities to Berkeley. But the first is it's perhaps obviously a student town. 1 in 3 people in Tübingen are students, which, of course, leads people who are skeptical of academics to, shall we say, make fun of Tübingen.
Right.
And so that's certainly a similarity it has with Berkeley, whereas I used to say there's an intellectual on every street corner, and I loved it for that very reason. I was very much at home in Berkeley. The other similarity I think Tübingen has with Berkeley is it has so many hills. Peter.
Yes, hills.
Let me tell you about these hills. Yeah, one after another. Oh my Lord, it's another hill. So that's why my feet are killing me, because I've been walking all around the city. I had to go visit my dear Dr. Vater this afternoon for a moment, and he lives on a very steep hill. I'm always out of breath when I get there. If that tells you something.
Yeah.
And then I had to. What else did I do? Oh, just the things like walking to where I live in the Stift. You've got to go up a hill to get out and up a hill to get back if you go a certain way. They're never ending. But here, this town, it has beautiful cobble streets. You know, the old cobble streets and the old buildings. It really is a medieval looking town in what's called the Altstadt, the old city.
Right.
And I guess maybe a third thing that Tübingen might have, although this is a bit of a stretch, is that it is a town surrounded by water. Although with Berkeley, the water was the San Francisco Bay, which was much bigger. Tübingen is on what's called the Neckar River, and the Neckar is stunningly beautiful. It's not beautiful after it rains. It gets a bunch of mud in it. It's awful. It's this awful color, brown after rainstorms. I hate it. But when it's not raining, it's really beautiful. Anyway, this is sorry, I'm just gushing now over South Germany, but Southwest Germany to be precise. And the Black Forest is about a half an hour from here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wonderful.
So that means perhaps a bit of a stretch, but I think it means about a half an hour from where the Rhineland mystics were.
Ah,
I think. My geography's not that great, but I think that would be accurate. Which, and of course, I think some of these Rhineland mystics were influential on Martin Luther. So there is, of course, then that connection.
right.
Why am I saying all this? Oh, because my feet hurt and I had to take my shoes off. Wow, that was a buddy trail.
Oh, man.
Wow. Well, we're back, listeners. I don't know what the point of any of that was.
Through the garden path, let me tell you.
Wow. So, what are we going to talk about today, Peter? You had something in particular that you wanted to talk about.
Well, I wanted to talk about the movie It, since we've both finally seen it now.
I know, the problem is I'm not sure I can remember it, so maybe if you start, you can jog my memory.
Right. Well, I thought it was. Well, first off, let me just say there are not many movies that I would say this about, and spoiler alerts abound here. Just we're gonna spoil the hell out of it if you haven't already seen it. So.
Well, too bad. That's, listen to the podcast with your own what are those things? Listen with your own discretion.
That's right.
Lay it on us, Peter. Spoil it to all get out.
But I think it was one of the only movies that I really liked and I really enjoyed, but also made me vomit.
Oh, that's right. I remember that, because didn't you text me from the movie?
Yeah. The leper scene in the second movie made me regurgitate into my popcorn bucket. I was very glad I had the bucket, a nice containment vessel, so that I didn't get it anywhere else.
But please tell me you'd already eaten the popcorn.
I'd already eaten most of the popcorn.
Okay, good. And you didn't try to eat the rest of it.
No. Then I I was sitting near the door, so I just ducked around the corner and put it in the trash can and came back.
Oh, good. I don't remember the leper scene, but remember, I guess I should clarify why I don't remember the leper scene. I got this wild hair that I wanted to go see It Part 2 at 10:30 at night on a Saturday. The movie, since all of you know that I am now a student in Germany, the movie was all in German, and it was at 10:30 at night. One other thing you should know about me, I'm not a night owl. At all. So, I go to this movie that's all in German to practice my German. I understood a lot of it. Even maybe most of it. Some of the scenes they talked just too fast. It was impossible. But at least at 10:30 at night it was impossible. But even in the morning might have been difficult. But I don't remember the leper scene. So remind me where that came in.
That was in the pharmacy.
Oh yeah, that's right. And he's running downstairs. Was it he or she? He's running downstairs and the leper chases him downstairs. What about that? What about that caused such a visceral reaction in you?
Oh, because the leper throws up into his mouth.
Wow, I really missed that. How long into the movie was that scene?
Oh, I don't know, about halfway through.
Oh yeah, I was getting tired by halfway through. I had finished all my popcorn by that point. I was beginning to regret the fact that I got Coca-Cola because I shouldn't drink caffeine that late at night. I was beginning to whine that it wasn't like the book.
Yep.
I'm just horrible. I'm the enfant terrible. So I don't remember the leper scene. I'm gonna have to go see it again. I'll have to go look at it again. I think it's still showing here in Tübingen.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you can find a showing in English.
Nah, where's the fun in that?
I don't know.
The only thing I watch in English now is the X-Files and the Golden Girls, and that's just because I can't get either one of them in German.
There you go.
If I could get them in German... Well, I could get the X-Files in German, but I'd have to rebuy them, and I refuse to do that.
Did I tell you Kate and I are going to a Golden Girls puppet show later this month?
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds fun. But I don't want to derail us from it. So what did you think about Stephen King's cameo?
I liked it. I thought it was so nicely self-aware. A good little sort of wink and a nod.
Yeah, tell me about this self-aware thing, because I don't actually agree with the criticism that King can't write an ending.
Well, that's the thing, right? Whether or not you agree with it, it is a common criticism. And
yes, but I don't think it's well-founded. I've read dozens of his not dozens, nearly 24 of his novels. I don't think that's a fair criticism.
Well, I'm not addressing whether or not it's a fair criticism. I think it's funny that he acknowledged it in the movie.
Mm.
You know,
That he
especially
can't write an ending to save his life.
yeah, especially with him delivering that to the main, the one of the main protagonists who's the king stand-in in the novel.
Uh-huh. Well, and some of this could be, right, because the whole Stephen King universe is connected to the Dark Tower.
Right.
And so some of that could be a wink and a nod to the Dark Tower ending, which for some people is angering and is just awful. For me, when I read it, I agree with King that it may not be the best ending, but it's the ending that needed to be written.
Hmm.
And I wasn't surprised at all, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, and I finished that on Christmas Eve morning of 2016.
Okay.
And I got up very early. I got up at 4 in the morning solely to finish The Dark Tower.
Hmm.
And I had to work that day at Barnes and Noble. That's why I'm giving you all these details.
Right.
But I got up early to finish it, as I remember. And as I got there, I just went, "Oh wow, oh my God, I'm gonna have to process this for 6 months." And I think I really did. I spent the next half a year just off and on thinking about that ending and what it meant.
Right.
But I have a Facebook post from Stephen King here that I just pulled up, and I wanted to read this. He says here, according to Jake Carriage in The Telegraph, I can't write a good ending to save my life. If my life was at stake, I probably could. I'd just double space and write, to his relief, he woke up and discovered it was all a dream. That would probably work.
There you go.
Okay, apparently I found that more funny than you did. You didn't even laugh.
I laughed a little. Quietly.
A little. Quietly. So you thought Stephen King's cameo was decently self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
How
Which is
about,
always fun.
Yes, I think he really does have a humility to him.
Yeah.
I think he knows what it is to live in real poverty.
Mm-hmm.
As many people in Maine do, and I think even though he's a millionaire, I think he's donated millions upon millions of dollars to public libraries.
Yes.
And he always says, I'm grateful for the royalty checks. You all put my kids through college.
Yeah.
And so there's a kind of left-wing populism to him that is quite appealing.
Right.
In other words, I don't think he's snobbish or standoffish. He goes to interviews in t-shirts and jeans. And maybe you could make the criticism that that's, quite affected or, it's a marketing ploy. But I don't think so. I think he's got enough money now that he just doesn't care.
Right.
But I don't think that means that he's writing bad stories. The Institute, his newest, just came out here in Germany a couple of weeks ago, and I really want to read it, but I'm stuck because I'm listening to it in German on audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter, I got a story for you.
Yes.
So I've got it on, and I'm walking back to the Stift. This is a couple of weeks ago. And it's just to a scene where Pennywise torments one of the kids. I'm forgetting the specific kid on the ice. The water has frozen and it's on the ice, and Pennywise is drifting towards the kid and saying, "We all float down here." Of course, he's talking in German for me, but anyway, "We all float down here." And I look, and in the middle of the road, Peter, I kid you not, there is a white balloon. Literally. Right in front of me, a white balloon.
Wow. That's creepy.
I was honestly scared that I was going to end up floating in the neck car. But so then tell me, related to the movie, because of course I knew I was going to do this. You were going to say let's talk about the movie, and I was instantly going to drift into the books and into Dark Tower and the King himself. And sorry about that.
That's all right.
So then tell me, with the movie,
Mm-hmm.
how did you find? Because obviously we've both seen both part 1 and part 2.
Yep.
How did you find the movies? But I guess we can focus on part 2 compared to the book.
Well, there are some things. I actually have more issues with part 2 than part 1.
Okay, let's hear those issues.
The big issues is I feel like not enough was done with the ancillary characters. Bev's wife.
Bev's wife?
Not Bev's wife. Good Lord. Bev's husband, and why am I blanking? The sort of leader of the losers' wife.
The leader of the whose wife?
Losers.
Oh, Audra. Bill's wife, Audra.
Yeah, Bill's wife, Audra. I was a little disappointed that they were left out because that sort of showed the expanded power of it.
Oh, that it can affect the families and the spouses of the people.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Now, they had to come to Derry to be affected, but I thought that would have added nice tension, would have added more urgency to Bill's reactions and things like that. I really thought that would have added something to the movie to have them in there. And I don't know that it would have added a ton more runtime, or that there aren't other things that could have been cut out.
Well, because Audra, if I remember correctly, Audra gets exposed to the deadlights.
Right. She does, and this is probably one of the... Some people probably thought this was part of the weak ending, then, where Bill has to ride with her on his bicycle to save her.
Oh, I had actually forgotten that Bill rode on the bicycle to save her. I thought Bill rode on the bicycle to forget the memories, because he himself forgets the memories.
No, he rides on the bicycle with her to save her.
But
and
in
then
the
they
process,
both forget the memories.
Then they both forget the memories. Okay,
Right.
so I was half right.
But that's not that's a result of the bicycle ride, but not the purpose of the bicycle ride.
Okay, see, I guess I read it as Bill was saving Audra and himself by forgetting the trauma. And so the move, and I guess I read this in a theological fashion, actually, because you know me, I think all of King's works are theological. Right. And so for me, the future is where the terror and trauma of Pennywise dissolves, and they move on into a new life with a new beginning, and that's then resurrection. So that was how I was reading the ending of it.
Mm-hmm.
But perhaps I'm just being too much of a theologian at the moment.
Perhaps.
Well, and this is so. What I was mad about in the movie was they cut out all the Dark Tower references, and
see, that made a lot of sense to me.
But you can't understand Stephen King without the Dark Tower. That's my whole problem with these film adaptations of his works, is they don't understand. Well, I think they get it, but they say, the material's too rich, we can't touch this, to which I say, then why are you making a movie out of it at all? And don't get me started on the Dark Tower adaptation. Oh my God. You know, Robert Shaw, the Dean of American Choral Conductors, once said that the Bach St. Matthew Passion and St. John Passion defied recording, and that's why he never made one. That they were too special, too powerful, too rich, that you just couldn't record them. I would say the same thing about Stephen King's Dark Tower, and those books most directly connected to it, like It, for instance. I think if you're really going to give it the due that it needs, you have to have the Dark Tower connections.
I think they did a good job making it stand alone, but also throwing in some subtle references. Right, there's a lot of turtle imagery in it. that says, hey, if you know, you know. If you don't, you're like, was into turtles.
What do you mean? There are subtle references in the movie or the books?
The movie.
Where the heck were the subtle references to the turtle in the movie? I think I maybe saw one.
Oh, there's like 3 or 4 different turtles show up over the course of the movie.
God, you really got to pay more attention than I was. I guess I was looking for the dialogue. Mm-hmm. But in the book, I think it's Pennywise who says to Mike Hanlon, who comes to Mike Hanlon or maybe it's not Pennywise, but he has a strong sense the turtle is dead. He cannot help you now.
Right.
And also it was the turtle who summoned them all together, right? The turtle was behind this. In German, by the way, the word for turtle is Schildkröte, and it literally means shield frog.
Yeah.
And so in my audiobook, when I got to this part, but all those nuances of the book
well, they have to be lost in a movie. They have to be.
But then my question is, and not just the nuances, I'm talking about direct connections to Dark Tower. How do you really tell the story of it as a movie?
Well, I thought they did a very good job telling the story of it as a movie. They
told it as more of a standalone, then.
Right. That's what I think you have to do if you're making it into a movie.
Okay. But, so then here's my next question. There are all of these Stephen King adaptations, most of which I've never seen, but I know they exist. I think one of the best, actually I have seen this one, I think one of the best is probably Misery. I think, what's her name, Kathy Bates? Oh, I think she just was fabulous in that film. But it's like all of those movies then miss the overarching connection to the Stephen King universe.
Well, of course, and they do that on purpose.
Is that to get more viewers?
Partially, and partially it's just because the Stephen King universe as a universe isn't popular enough to create that overarching narrative.
Okay.
Right? So it's only recently that the DC movies have created an overarching universe. Used to be Batman movies stood alone, Superman movies stood alone, whoever else movies stood alone.
I didn't actually realize I guess there was Justice League. That's the overarching one, right?
Right. Well, the new generation of them interconnect.
But in the comics, they all interconnect?
In the comics, they all interconnect. It's this whole overarching universe.
I think I would have enjoyed the DC stuff a lot more if I would have known what you just said. I didn't know that.
And it's starting with Iron Man, with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that Marvel creates this overarching universe that all interconnects. Before that, any Marvel movies were all standalone, right? The X-Men are their own thing. Spider-Man is his own thing. They did a couple Fantastic Four movies that were their own thing. They weren't interconnected. Now they're doing this whole thing where they're all interconnected because they've figured out that there's enough interest in the comics, that people are familiar enough with the comics to do this overarching universe, that people understand that Spider-Man exists in the same world as Iron Man, and there are these interweaving storylines that really matter.
See, I didn't know that. I'm not kidding. The only thing that I knew was interconnected were things like the cartoon Justice League, and as a kid I used to watch the 70s cartoon Super Friends.
Yeah.
And that was the only, I know Super Friends was controversial, but I liked it. I was 9, give me a break. Perhaps I wouldn't have if I was older, but I didn't know that these were... I had a sense, right? I knew Spider-Man was Marvel, I knew Superman was DC, but I didn't know that Spider-Man and Iron Man were in the same world. I just thought they were the same production company.
No, they're in the same world. They run into each other a lot. Like, Spider-Man's actually really good friends with the Human Torch from Fantastic Four. And
really?
Deadpool is... a huge fan of Spider-Man, and they do a series of team up comics that I just absolutely love. If you're into absurdist humor, Deadpool and Spider-Man is a classic.
This is a whole, like, well, you know me, I can't read comic books. They don't make any sense to me. Seriously, you even got me to try V for Vendetta as a graphic novel. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and that one's pretty straightforward graphically.
Well, yeah, but I just couldn't. There were too many pictures. I couldn't get into it. I don't know what that says about me.
I don't either. Wow.
Yeah, I just couldn't. You got to follow the thought bubbles, and I can't do it. I've tried since I was 8 years old. I've tried to read comics. I had some. You'd be proud of me, Peter. I had some Superman comics when I was 8, and I just couldn't handle all the pictures.
That's fascinating.
I'm very text driven.
I wonder if that's part of your issue with movie adaptations.
Is because I'm not visually intelligent?
Well, not that you're not visually intelligent, but just that the visual language doesn't speak to you, right? Because one of the reasons that graphic novels, comic books move really well to the screen is that it's one visual medium. It's a static visual medium being converted to a moving visual medium.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, a lot of the times they'll use sort of the same shots as references. So if you know the comic book, you know this particular drawing, they'll do a replica of that as part of a scene or something.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, I suppose it might be my reference, but then I think that actually proves my point that King defies cinematic adaptation because he doesn't write graphic novels. He has one. It's called Cycle of the Werewolf. That's a kind of graphic novel or a kind of comic. Well, not really a kind of comic, but it's got a lot of pictures in it, right? It's the only Stephen King book that I know that has all these drawings. They're quite beautiful drawings, actually. Well, that's the only one I know. Otherwise, it's all just text. And so maybe that's the...
Well, that might be why you have issues with it, is because you have a way in your head that you probably think it should look. In a way that it should flow.
Well, I don't know about look necessarily. I can certainly be influenced by movies, and actually I know this because having seen both the It films, when I'm listening to the audiobook now and they're talking about Richie Tozier, I always see Finn Wolfhard now.
There you go.
Like he has invaded my consciousness. Darn you, Finn Wolfhard. He's invaded my consciousness as Richie. And I don't remember the boy's name who plays Bill, but I see him as well in the book now, looking at the audio or listening to the audio.
Mm-hmm.
And the worst one for me, honestly, is I can't read or listen to Harry Potter without seeing Dan Radcliffe.
Well, he's like spot on for the illustration because there are illustrations in the Harry Potter books.
Yeah, but minus his blue eyes. Oh, he's got the most beautiful blue eyes. And that's like, no. I mean, Joe Rowling didn't care, so I got over it when I found out that she didn't mind. I'm very concerned, by the way. Okay, so now I got to tell you a major contradiction, right?
Okay.
For these books and movies, you know, if King doesn't like an adaptation of his books, I snub it.
That's fair.
Will not even look at it. We'll not even give it a chance if he doesn't like it. But if he signs off on it and says, all right, this is good, it's like sending one of my kids to college, I got to give it up now, then I'll look at it. When I found out that Joe Rowling was happy with, very much happy overall with how Harry Potter turned out, I think that's what made me so accepting of those movies.
Mm-hmm.
I loved them. But I think if she had said, no, this is trash or this is awful, I don't think I ever would have watched them. I don't care how popular they were.
I don't think they would have made it beyond the first one if they didn't have her blessing.
Well, that's true, and they probably wouldn't have even made the first one if they didn't have her blessing. But
right.
I remember there's an interview with her. I think it's her and Dan Radcliffe together, and she tells the story. Or no, Dan Radcliffe tells the story about how he was horribly allergic to the contacts that they were putting in his eyes. Like, the producers were so concerned with Rowling's world, they knew Dan Radcliffe had blue eyes, and so they were sticking these green contacts, and he was horribly allergic to them. And they called Joe Rowling up in a panic and said, Dan just cannot wear these contacts. And she said, oh, it's fine. It's fine. As long as the mother's eyes match Dan's, that won't be a problem. Well, unfortunately, I went back and looked at one of the scenes from the 6th or 7th movie where where Harry's parents get murdered by Voldemort.
Mm-hmm.
Lily's eyes don't match Harry's. Lily has brown eyes. Dan has blue eyes, Harry has blue eyes, as I've just said in the movie. So they didn't ultimately honor her.
Well, the movies aren't like canon, right? So that's one of the things that she understands, is that you can't make the movies perfect to the books.
What do you mean? They're not canon?
I mean, so like there are contradictory things between the books and the movies in some situations.
Yes, particularly the ending of the 7th movie. I was kind of not the 18 years later or the 19 years later. Before that ending, the ending was different. I was a little disappointed.
But that's one thing that J.K. Rowling understood, is that certain changes and shifts have to be made in order to make a movie.
Did you know that in Europe she's known as Joe Rowling?
I did not know
America, that. That's why I keep calling her Joe Rowling, by the way.
Okay.
Not just because, well, I guess I've been in Europe too long, but in America they put, and maybe in Europe now too, they put J.K. on it, but in America they put J.K. because the notion of a woman writing these books, it was horribly sexist. Why she became known as J.K. Rowling. I can't remember the story exactly, but I found that out when I was 13 or 14, and ever since then I've always said Joe Rowling, because even at that young age I went, this is horribly sexist.
That's fascinating.
Sorry. What, that I cared about such things at 13, or that the publishing industry is so horrible?
Oh, no, the difference, that they left it J.K. here and changed it to Joe, because I think it was J.K. everywhere on the first one.
Was it? I have to look this up now. Let me look this, because I could be wrong that
because I believe it was horrible, because it didn't publish in the U.S. until it got popular in the U.K.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the stuff because I could be totally wrong with how it is J.K. Rowling on the cover. Okay, so it must have been in Britain too. Well, that's even worse. That it was here and in the UK. But I know on the inside of the book, it always said Joanne Rowling. I don't know if it did in America.
I don't either.
We'll have to look that up.
Here, hold on just a second. I have all of them stacked in a bookshelf 10 feet away from me.
Yes, but do you have a first edition of them? That's the question. First edition Harry Potter book sells for $90,000. Yes, please.
Okay, so Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. On the inside...
Does it say JK?
It is definitely JK.
Yeah.
And then on the Canadian edition of the Half-Blood Prince...
it says Joe, doesn't it? Or Joanne?
No, it says JK.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, I want to see Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, first edition.
Stumbling block, answering the important questions in life.
Because I'm almost positive it said...
Positive.
I'm almost positive. Sorry, I can't even talk. I'm almost positive it said Joanne K. Well, now they're only giving me the dumb jacket. I don't care about the cover. I want to see the inside. These people clearly are not... These people clearly are not book collectors. My lord. Of course, I'm looking at the Independent from the... Oh, that's what I'm doing wrong.
Looking at the Independent.
Okay, here we go. I'm 9. The sorry, I just gave you that in German.
It's all right.
If I get really intensely focused, the German comes out of the corner.
That's probably good.
Yes. It's good. It also could be horribly annoying or considered kind of elitist if I was in the wrong place.
There you go.
Well, I can't find it. You'll have to take my word. But you shouldn't take my word, obviously.
Well, her website is jkrowling.com.
Yes, I know, but I think where it says copyright in the British editions, it says Joanne K.
I don't know. I don't understand why she'd copyright it under something different in Canada and the U.S. than in Britain.
I don't know either.
So I think it's copyright J.K. Rowling everywhere.
Nope, it's not. Got it right here.
Okay.
Copyright. This is for Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. First published in Great Britain, 1997. Bloomsbury Publishing. Yada yada yada. Copyright text Joanne Rowling, 1997.
Fascinating.
Yep. And when I found that out at 13, I had referred to her as Jo Rowling ever since.
Why not Joanne?
Because she goes by Jo.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I was just asking.
Yeah, she goes by Jo.
This is a fascinating bit of interest from the Canadian edition.
But
under the copyright information, it says J.K. Rowling has asserted her moral rights.
Yeah, I think it says that. I've gotten rid of it now, but I think it says something like that in the British edition too.
That must be a part of the different copyright law kind of thing, because it doesn't say that in the American editions.
Oh, doesn't it?
No.
I never read the American editions. I always read the British. When I was a kid, I had this thing that I didn't want to read it in the American. I think I read the first couple in the American editions, and then after that, I always read the British editions. You know me, the snob that I am, apparently.
Well, after the first couple, there stopped being a difference between the American and British editions.
I know, but no, actually, there were little things like train. No, there was one, and it's in Goblet of... No, it's in... come on, Brach. Brach, what is wrong with you? Order of the Phoenix.
Okay.
Where Harry puts on his trainers or something, and then the American says tennis shoes.
Oh.
It was little things like that. It wasn't as big as a title change. You know, what does it say about America that she had to change her book to Sorcerer's Stone because Philosopher's Stone, nobody would read it.
Well, it just didn't know the cultural context. So the Philosopher's Stone is a real thing in alchemy.
Yeah, you know, I had somebody actually want to practice alchemy on me back in March.
Weird.
Yes, she was going to melt gold and do the whole thing to cleanse my aura. I told her my baptism was good enough.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But yes.
That's why I can't be a hospital chaplain.
That's why what?
I can't be a hospital chaplain.
Why?
Because I refuse to affirm beliefs like alchemy or that crystals do anything or stuff like that.
With the crystals, you just got to give them a bath every once in a while, then they work better.
But I refuse to pray over someone's crystals.
I would pray over someone's crystals, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean, Jesus says, even the stones will cry out, "You are the Son of God."
I guess.
So the crystal stuff, if that leads somebody to Christ, fine. Interesting that I'm more supportive of that than you are. I would not have expected that.
Really?
Well, what do you mean?
I don't know. You know me. I'm a fairly theologically orthodox.
Excuse me. What do you mean by that comment?
I mean, like, I don't know. I'm old school.
And you don't think I'm fairly theologically orthodox?
In a different way.
Explain. Bitte.
Like...
Bitte erklärst du, was du meinst.
Let me try and think how I mean this. Because I said that without thinking. As I so often do.
I just jumped right on that like a bull terrier.
I think I draw more distinct lines than you do.
I invite you to say more.
Well, so like the continuous debate on this podcast, could you take a camera back in time and take a picture of Jesus?
What the heck's the point? Does it matter?
I don't know if it matters, but I believe you could.
Okay.
You know, I believe that a number of the miracles actually happened.
Well, miracles are eschatological symbols of the inbreaking kingdom of God.
That wasn't an answer to the question.
Keep going.
And I'm trying to think of one of the other ones that was come up on here. Well, I don't know where you stand on this lately because I know your position has changed, but I believe that I actually could have physically touched and interacted with the resurrected Jesus.
Well, so the first thing I want to say, I know we did that episode on how we've changed, but now my question is have I really shifted that dramatically?
I don't know. That's why I'm just saying I don't know where you are on that one anymore.
Oh, that I could touch the resurrected Jesus. I mean, I ingest and receive the resurrected Jesus every time I have the Lord's Supper. So, could I have? Oh, this is too hard for me.
That's why I'm more traditionally Orthodox.
I think I would prefer to say of myself. I used to think people at PLTS I was called Orthodox Brach. Did you know that?
I think you've mentioned that before.
Yeah. I know that surprises you, but
really for PLTS, maybe not so much.
I don't know what you mean by that. Every one of my professors acknowledged the resurrection, so I don't know what you mean by that, and that Jesus was Lord and God. There was a very high Christology at PLTS. That's what I would say. I have a high Christology.
Okay.
For me, Jesus is Lord and God, the second person of the Trinity enfleshed, and the whole notion of existence, of reality, of future, everything is connected to the Word becoming flesh for me. So I think that's really where I stand, which is why I squirm a little bit of, well, could you touch him? Could you? And I'm like, I don't know. He's Lord and God. It's his business.
That's what I mean by traditionally Orthodox. That's what the modifier there is.
Well, see, I don't know what you mean by this word tradition, because I think the quote-unquote traditional Christian mystics would have affirmed similar things to what I'm saying.
I don't think the mystics would be considered traditionally Orthodox.
Even the fathers, though, even Gregory of Nyssa, I think the fathers knew, by and large, that the resurrection was an encounter with the living Christ. So that's why I'm confused with this notion of traditional and Orthodox.
But I believe most of the fathers probably believe that they could have poked Jesus if they had been there at the resurrection, they could have done what Thomas did and put their hands in his wounds.
See, I'm not sure the fathers would have even asked the question of if they could have been there, they would have done it. I think that's an epistemological difference between, and this is actually the disadvantage. I'm going to critique modernity right now. It's the disadvantage of modernity, and actually postmodernity's one of postmodernity's great insights, I think. With the modern epistemology, we got so hung up on did it happen or not. And I just don't think prior to the Enlightenment people even worried about that question. I think they were much more open to encounter than we are today. So if you wonder why I squirm, that's why. I guess I'm squirming against Immanuel Kant.
Well, I would argue they didn't debate whether or not it happened because of course it happened.
Well, yeah, but even the notion of happened, I mean, excuse me while I sound like Bill Clinton, but it depends on your definition of the word happened.
But we don't get into that kind of differentiation until modernity.
Well, right, and so I'm trying to actually critique modernity by saying we don't have to worry about that question. This is about an encounter with the living Christ.
Right, so how do you encounter something if it's not in the flesh, if it's not there to encounter?
Well, I think it is in the flesh, absolutely, and I think it very much can be encountered, but for some reason the video camera question just sounds scandalous, and not the way, by the way, that the cross sounds scandalous. It sounds scandalous in a whole other... It's like when Tillich writes about the resurrection, and he says, inquiring about what happened to every molecule is blasphemy. I agree with him actually there because I think it takes the holy mystery out of it, and the mysterium tremendum. The hidden God is revealed where God is least expected. In Barth's words, God elects the garden tomb.
See, to me, if you can't, the video camera question is important because if it's If it's not, then it removes some of the scandal of the incarnation.
Uh-huh. Well, if you pushed me, I would say yes, we would have seen Jesus.
Okay.
Yes, we would have seen him. But that's different than can I poke him?
Why?
Because I think what we're dealing with in the resurrection, I do think it's embodied, absolutely, and that's the decisive claim for saying bodies, and particularly marginalized bodies, matter.
Right.
I do think the resurrection is bodily because matter matters to God, to use a tautology a bit.
Yes.
It's like, obviously matter matters, but anyway. But poking him,
or throw a pen
I'll chew
at him.
on him, I'll chew on him, but I don't want to poke him.
I'm not saying like it would be proper or not rude, but if we go back to the time I started throwing pens at you, that was the point I was trying to make, is that I could have thrown a pen at Jesus and hit him.
I still don't know where I am on that one, because for me, and I've laid out all of the, well, not all, obviously, but I've laid out a bit just off the top of my head, what I'm working out of when I make these claims of resurrection, right? I'm taking very seriously the Word enfleshed and the Thomas story. Thomas is my favorite disciple. Thomas, in my opinion, of the 12 disciples, Thomas was the only theologian of the cross. I take this from the brilliant pastoral commentary by Robert Smith called Wounded Lord. Thomas would have no other Lord and God than the wounded Lord of Golgotha. That was why he had to see the wounds. It wasn't because Thomas was hung up with did it happen or not. Thomas wanted only the wounded, crucified Lord as his God. Thomas is my favorite disciple, hands down. And Peter's my second favorite because he's such an idiot, yet he at least gets it right that Jesus is the Christ. I mean, it feels like me on some days, honestly. But Thomas really is my favorite. And I think instead of doubting Thomas, and I do take this from Bob Smith's excellent commentary, Thomas should be called Faithful Thomas. Absolutely. I think the church has given Thomas a terrible rap over the last 2,000 years, and I think he was the only one who got the most important thing out of the whole deal, that God is revealed where God is most hidden. And so the question of, can you touch him? Well, as long as he's got the wounds, then yes. As long as that is the one who hung abandoned with those thieves and robbers, that one who was forsaken, who cried out to God in his abandonment, as long as it's that one, then yeah, I'll give you the video camera argument.
Yes.
But I want those wounds first.
Okay.
And I want that particularity of the Word hanging on a tree first. That to me is more important than the video camera question. That's got to come second. But I'll give it to you.
I think this is the closest we've ever come to agreeing on this.
I'm not sure it's all that different from what I've always said.
You've just gotten better at clarifying it.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe because I've given up on theological method. I think that's part of it. It's brilliantly freeing to be able to say I can take a little bit from everybody and love them all for different reasons. That has been since working with Jürgen Moltmann. That I think has been the most important thing that I've learned in the last half year.
That's sort of always where I've come from, and that's always gotten me in a little bit of trouble.
Why has it gotten you in trouble?
Because there are people who don't want me to cite Lewis. There are people who don't want me to, cite the occasional Presbyterian or the occasional Anglican, or even, to cite Balthazar because he's a Catholic.
Oh my gosh, I'm developing a theological crush on Balthazar for his Mysterium Pashala.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I have a friend in California who, if you're interested, I can see if she can come on. She is a Balthazar expert.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Please do. Yes, contact her, but please give me... I've got so much to do. Give me 3 weeks or so to finish that book.
Absolutely, no problem.
Yes, but we need to have her on because I want to... I want to know if she agrees that Balthazar is radicalizing the theology of the cross, and that's how he's getting to his Trinitarian notion of Holy Saturday.
I think that'll be a great conversation. We're going to make that happen.
Yes, and Balthazar is going in the end of my Bart chapter in my dissertation. So I have Bart, I have Alan Lewis, and I have Balthazar in that chapter.
Excellent.
And that was the other thing. By the way, I'm getting into a little bit of not hot water, but I'm getting a hard time from some Lutherans about my love of Bart.
Fascinating.
You didn't know that Lutherans are often allergic to Karl Barth?
I did not know that. That never would have occurred to me.
Well, he's Reformed after all.
Yeah, but
it's not just that. I mean, Continental Reformed and Continental Lutheran, at least in Germany, aren't necessarily that different.
Right. Continental Reformed is entirely different than American Reformed.
Oh, I know. Oh, yes. You know, Dr. Maltman is Reformed, right?
I think you'd mentioned.
Yeah. He defines himself, by the way, as a left-wing Bartian. And I say that because that's the second most important thing I've learned from Jürgen Maltman, is now a very deep appreciation for Karl Barth's doctrine of election. Erwählungslehre in the German. Mm-hmm. I love that, of 2.2, the first 200 pages. And I'd heard Dr. Maltman, before I became his student, I'd heard him talk about how he loved that understanding. And, it's just wonderful. But, you know, I can't really, maybe it's an epistemological thing, right? Barth is critical of using philosophy and theology. And maybe some of the Lutheran systematicians want to be more philosophically rich than Barth was. Barth knew those traditions, I think. I mean, particularly just working with part of his Romans commentary a few months ago, he was in dialogue with all the great 19th century philosophers, I think. But I think it was a dialogue to critique them and to say theology does not need to be beholden to philosophy.
Right.
That's a bold claim.
It is a bold claim.
I actually am starting to like that claim a lot, Peter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not out of intellectual laziness. I think I would maintain certainly a healthy respect for philosophy, but I don't need to feel, I think as a theologian, I don't need to feel inferior because I don't have training in philosophy.
Right.
Like, Peter, I have zero training in philosophy. Zero.
Really? You did not take any courses in undergrad?
Never. Not one.
I took a philosophy course I skipped so much that my professor threatened to fail me, except that I got an A on all my papers in the final group exam that he made me take by myself.
Oh. Why did you skip so much?
Because I felt going to class for that class was unnecessary.
Wow, even then you were a challenger.
Yep.
Are you sure you're not an 8 on the Enneagram?
I don't know anything about the Enneagram.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm reading Richard Rohr's book on the Enneagram right now. Do you ever read Richard Rohr?
No. Maybe.
See, I would think he would be somebody you would like. He's the radical Franciscan, but he's quite traditionally Orthodox in some ways.
I haven't read any of his, no. Not since seminary, anyway. I might have read some of him in seminary. Racked through my brain. I read so much in seminary.
Assigned or unassigned? Or both?
Both. I was far more likely to read unassigned material than assigned material, to be honest.
You really do like just being a maverick, don't you?
I'm an autodidact.
Well, some may see that as a virtue, some may see that as a danger. I think it's both.
Yeah, probably.
I did a bit of the autodidact stuff when I started reading Edward Skilebeck's his wonderful book on Jesus that I always talk about. That certainly was not assigned, but I was having so much trouble in my Gospels course because I wanted to see, and I thought I guess I wasn't officially an academic theologian then. I couldn't have been. I was too new in my studies, but I wanted to see, as somebody who was beginning to feel a call to systematic theology, I wanted to see how it connected, how biblical scholarship connected with theology.
Mm-hmm.
And Skilobex was how I did that. So I guess I did some autodidacticism, perhaps to the chagrin of some of my professors, but, well, I don't care now. Well, I do care actually a bit because I think I missed out. So this then is the perhaps danger of autodidacticism. If you take that approach in theological education, you could miss sources that, 5-10 years down the road from when they were assigned, they would come in quite handy. So
Right.
what do you do at that point?
I don't know.
Well, clearly you haven't. Clearly it's not a big worry for you.
No, it's not.
Well, sometimes I wish I had put a little more seriousness into the biblical scholarship for its own sake. Whereas I was always doing biblical scholarship as a theologian, as somebody who was developing as a theologian, I guess I should say. Well, I mean, do you believe, Peter, that everybody who thinks about God and the transcendent deserves to be called a theologian?
I don't know, but they're all doing theology.
Ah. Wouldn't that make them theologians if they're all doing theology?
I don't know. Does everyone who uses baking soda to neutralize a vinegar spill a scientist?
I think you're defining, but correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're defining theology narrowly as the academic discipline.
No, I'm defining it very broadly. That's why I don't... A theologian is perhaps someone involved in the academic discipline.
Uh-huh. Okay. So I would put an adjective for that then. I would say the academic theologian is in the discipline.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
But I think more broadly, anybody could be a theologian.
Fair enough. I guess just as anyone could be a philosopher.
Well, I was watching an interview, and I'll be interested in what our Balthazar expert who's coming on, what she has to say, but I was watching an interview with the scholar Karen Kilby on von Balthazar, and she actually, this was a criticism she had of Balthazar, but she said that he was largely an autodidact.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
By my understanding, yeah. But like I say, our Professor Carpenter will know more about that.
Oh, she teaches Balthazar. Oh, wonderful.
She teaches at a Catholic university out in near San Francisco.
Do you know the name?
Not right off the top of my head, I don't.
Okay, because the first name that came to my head was St. Mary's College.
It might be. It very well might be.
Okay. Well, coming attractions. We ventured so far away from it.
That's fine.
So I thought I want to ask you one last thing about it.
Okay.
And that is the following. What did you think about Pennywise as the spider?
I thought it was adequately scary. Got the idea of the connection between the two well enough. I didn't find it particularly objectionable on a sort of movie interpretation sense.
Okay. How did you find that depiction compared with how it is described in the novel?
Well, I think the novel's fairly different.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more like pure spider in the novel, as opposed to this like half Pennywise, half spider thing. But I understand how they wanted to visually keep the two connected to each other. And in some ways, I think it was actually scarier, creepier, more viscerally horrifying than the novel's description.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I thought in the novel, I thought it was scarier because the spider is female and the spider's pregnant.
Right. I wish they'd worked a little bit more of that into the whole thing.
But I thought, so I will take the opposite view. I was rather appalled by that depiction. So maybe you're right when you said earlier that I have an idea in my head of how things ought to look.
I would guess you're also more scared of spiders than me.
When they're huge, like, 30 feet, yeah.
I mean, at any size, but...
Oh, come on. You don't think I'm scared of a little thing crawling up the wall, do you?
No, but are you scared of tarantulas?
God, yes.
I'm not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, I don't know that I'm scared of tarantulas. I'm just afraid they're going to bite me is all.
Tarantulas don't bite.
What's the one? The black widows bite, though, right?
Yeah, but you don't live anywhere black widows live.
Well, how do you know? How do you know that they don't have black widows in Germany?
Because I know the range of the Black Widow.
What is the range of the Black Widow, so I can never move to where they are?
Mostly outdoors in the southern United States.
Good! I'm never moving to the southern United States. Famous last words.
Always check your outhouses.
Oh, gosh. No, I thought the book... that was the one time in the book that I was genuinely terrified. I had nightmares.
Really?
I was 20... Peter, how old was I in 2016?
I don't know.
It was 28, I think. Because
Okay.
I think it was 3 years ago that I read the thing. And in the book, when Bill said... I don't know if it's Bill, but I think it's Bill. Somebody says in the book, Jesus Christ, it's female. I panicked. Oh, my goodness. I had nightmares.
See, I was way more scared of giant Paul Bunyan.
I just thought that... in the movie or the book?
The book.
In the movie, I thought it was amusing.
It was amusing in the movie. But that in the book, that got to me more because, I think partially because growing up in the northern Midwest, I have this, imagery of Paul Bunyan in my head. Of, who Paul Bunyan is and what Paul Bunyan should be.
Interesting.
And so subverting that was much scarier to me than as someone who was, raised on the Lord of the Rings mythos where giant spiders are just a thing.
Yeah, what's the one in Two Towers? What's the name?
I can't remember off the top of my head. It's
Sheob? No.
Sheob. Yeah, that's right, Sheob.
Really? Okay, yeah. No,
I'm pretty sure that's right. Or Shelob or something like that.
Shelob, yeah. That one got me a little bit in the film. Of course, I haven't read that far in the books. But the spider in it, and the reason it scared me was because at that point, I think was when I realized the depth of Pennywise's evil. The absolute, and then that behind the spider, all you have are the deadlights.
Right.
To me, that's so terrifying. I can't even put words to it. That is as terrifying for me as the hidden God. Even though this isn't the hidden God, this is the pure evil.
Yeah.
I don't think the hidden God... Well, that's interesting. Peter, is the hidden God evil?
Huh. I've never even considered that question. And so I don't want to make a proclamation about it without refreshing myself on the hidden God stuff.
Well, I don't want to... I don't want to take a whole new thing of the way this story could be read, but wow. Because if it's not the hidden God... the hidden God isn't working because I still can't say the hidden God is evil. The problem, I think, for Luther, the hidden God is law. Is only law, only righteousness. There's no righteousness or law here. This is pure evil.
Right.
But I do think that it may be as terrifying. I mean, are the deadlights Satan? That's another interesting theological question for it.
That is an interesting question.
Because I think if the answer to that is yes, you could say that actual notion of pure evil is much more terrifying than the stupid guy with the pitchfork and horns. Because
absolutely.
And not only is it terrifying, how manipulative it is. And how it sucks people in, and they don't even realize what's happening to them. I'm thinking of the citizens of Derry, right? The adults have no idea. They're alcoholics, they're drug addicts, they're abusers, or they're going around just bored with their small town life, having total meaninglessness, and it's the evil just drawing them deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's so much more than that stupid crab at the end of the movie.
Is Derry hell?
That is a brilliant question.
Thank you.
Yes, until it was redeemed.
Right.
And notice, nobody remains in hell. There was a universal redemption.
Well, on that note, we should wrap it up.
Well, until next time, I'm Brach Jennings.
And I'm Peter Clark.
And this has been Stumbling Block.
Stumbling Block is a production of Silver Turkey Studios.
Our Patreon producer is Ben Dittman, our executive producer is Peter Clark, and our executive director is Brach Jennings. Our theme music is by Mirrors for Windows, and we are hosted by Podbean. We can be reached by email at stumblingblockpodcast@gmail.com. Please consider supporting us at patreon.com/stumblingblock. And as always, thank you for listening.